there were no shortcuts from Nas in terms of training him, so reading the books, what have you, having a father as a musician. So, but there were no shortcuts in terms of getting to where Nas is at right now. It just weren't. He's just obviously immense talent, but talent isn't everything. You have to be. You want to get to that level. If you want to stay on for not get to Nas's level, but if you want to be great for an extended period of time, you have to. There is an apprenticeship, and you have to master or be attempting to master your craft. That is a lost art in today's society. I hate to sound like the old head on get off my lawn, but it just is. Everybody wants instant gratification. That's why, again, Nas and Deion, similar, very similar as far as having immense talent, and mastering their craft. Period. Mastering their craft. No skip steps, I should say. 6 albums in roughly 3 years, and you have a situation where, again, this is one of the most unprecedented runs in that any hip hop artist, rap artist has ever had. Point blank. Period. His character was really a character that you saw from the beginning of the show. I still listen, even watching it last night, it still hit hard as far as the death of Bodie. I thought Bodie would be one of those characters that certainly would last through the entire series. If you watched the entire season, you really saw this coming. Bodie was a man, in essence. I'll think back to the line that Avon had to Stringer back in season 3, like, you're a man without a country. Well, Bodie was kind of like in that same position, a man without a country. The Barksdales were done. He's working for Pop Joe. He was working for Pop Joe at the beginning as an independent. Well, not working for Pop Joe, but getting his drugs from Pop Joe as an independent. Then he had to come under the thumb of Marlo, and Marlo wanted that territory. Once the territory started, once the block started getting a lot of business because of the good stuff they were getting from Pop Joe. This was before Marlo had joined the co-op, and he hated everything that there was about Marlo Stansfield and how Marlo Stansfield did business. We saw Bodie and Poop in season 1 kill Wallace. We saw Bodie be fierce when he had to be, but he was a character similar to Omar, that he did have a code. Like, he did what he was told. He did have a code, and Marlo, the character of Marlo Stansfield, went beyond went places that Bodie just was not going to go, even as a drug dealer who had bodies on him. Like, there were just certain places that, like, Marlo, and you hear him in a number of these scenes, and we'll go through a couple of scenes involving Bodie. Deion Sanders is invested in the players. He's promoting them for Heisman Trophy. He's taking care of the players. You get, like I said, the NIL deals. He loves his players, and I think was not talked about with Deion Sanders enough. Everybody's caught up in the prime time and back in the day, Jerry Curl and all the stuff Deion did on the field. Deion was as confident and as arrogant of a football player, of an athlete that we've ever seen, but he backed it up. He's one of the greatest football players of all time, and he was a professional baseball player. This guy played 2 professional sports. Right. I think that what's missed about Deion is what people don't talk about enough. He's a Christian. He doesn't drink, doesn't smoke. He built his football acumen from the ground up as a coach. Started out with Prime Academy, then AAA, then Trinity Christian, then Jackson State, and now he's at Colorado. There have been no shortcuts. He's not effective, but he is in the process of mastering his craft, of being a craftsman as a coach. I'm looking at a coach right now, what I want out of a coach. And I just think that, to be honest with you, I think that I need a coach who played basketball right now. And listen, I'm not going to sit up here and tell you that playing in the NBA gives you a X's and O's advantage as far as in terms of knowledge of the game. I'm not going to sit up here and say that. You could be knowledgeable and not play the game and just train under a guy like Greg Popovich or whoever, Larry Brown or whoever, and just have a wealth of knowledge about the sport of basketball, and you just weren't good enough to play in the NBA. Well, to me, it's more about the connecting to players. That is even more than X's and O's. It's about connecting to players And if you don't connect with today's player, you don't have a chance, and you don't have a chance in hell. You just don't. I need someone who. Well, I'm looking for someone who played in the NBA. I'm looking for someone who's probably at the oldest 50. I just think this is where the game is going. I think 50 to 55 or 50. I just think that this certain coaches, in terms of age, in terms of that run of the mill, that recycled coach to me is a dying breed. I wouldn't want Doc Rivers coaching my team. I don't want. There's some guys that I don't want coaching my team anymore. Budenholzer, nah, I'm good. Even with the championship, I'm good. Because I think they won the championship in spite of Coach Bud, to be honest with you. Frank Vogel, I respect Frank Vogel. I'm sorry, I'm good. I'm good on Frank Vogel. I'm good. I wouldn't hire Frank Vogel if I'm Phoenix. Sorry. I just think that you need someone who these guys can connect with on a high level, and I just don't think that you can. I think Nick Nurse's X and O. I don't even first of all, the Nurse hire to me is inconsequential because in terms of making an impact, because the culture is some shit. Like Nick Nurse is not going to be able to overturn that culture. But even without the culture, I'm looking for someone who is young, innovative, and frankly, an ex-player. I'm looking for a Sam Cassell. You couldn't respect the performance in the moment. Like when this came out, I'm like, 25, 26 at the time. The series ended when I was 30. When Jamie Hector first comes on, when Marlo first comes on in season 3, remember, we dealt basically with 3 seasons of Avon Barksdale. Avon Barksdale is probably, I would say, outside of Omar, my second favorite character. The whole series, the entire Wire run, I would say Avon Barksdale is probably my second favorite character. Charismatic, Avon had a personality. Avon had a sense of humanity, cared about family. Most people love Avon, the character Avon Barksdale. You come in with Jamie Hector's character, with Marlo Stanfield, played by Jamie Hector. And by the way, those two have been in a number of movies together. I don't know if people realize that Jamie Hector and Wood Harris have been in about at least 6 movies, 5 to 6 movies together. You go check the IMDb. They played a lot of, they've been in a lot of the same stuff over the course of their careers. Mostly small and independent, but regardless, I found that very interesting. But Marlo, this guy comes in, not much of a personality, doesn't say too many words, but that was how he was supposed to play the character. He was supposed to be a guy who thinks fast, was efficient with his words, efficient with his actions, and was the new breed. He was like Avon 3.0 in essence, as far as like how ruthless he was. Like this character is he is as cold as ice. Is bad. And Avon did some shit. And Avon was crazy. Avon would kill you in a heartbeat. But Jamie Hector's character had this character had no remorse whatsoever. The most remorseful moment he had in the entire series, probably, if you want to call it that, was the most humane moment. I ain't gonna say even remorse. That's a bad term. The most human moment he had involved killing somebody. It was having Michael's father killed. That was him being quote unquote a good guy in his world, and even that came with the fact that, hey, I'm gonna kill your father, but when I do this, you belong to us. That came with a price. He's not doing shit like letting Cuddy walk out the game. Like, no, that's not what Marlo was about. Franklin and Louis are basically kindred spirits in that sense. Like they're basically they are one and the same. That's part of the reason why that was part of the reason why they complement each other in terms of building the empire. That's part of the reason. That's one of the reasons why they broke apart. They are two sides of the same coin. And Jerome, in essence, got squeezed between those two. You're talking about his wife, the love of his life, and his nephew. There was nowhere to run. Jerome never had a chance. Once he introduced Franklin to those dime bags and Louis got her hooks into Franklin, that was it. That was it for Jerome. That was it. Like there was no way out for Jerome. There was no way out. He wanted out, but there was just simply no way out. And this, again, The death of Jerome had to happen on this show. It had to happen. So over the weekend, Ja Morant on Friday was suspended 25 games. It was the suspension, of course, comes as no surprise. And the length of the suspension, of course, comes as no surprise. The NBA suspended Ja Morant for conduct detrimental to the league. That is a very loaded statement or loaded punishment. That could go in terms of what does that exactly mean. First of all, he must complete a league mandated program before even returning to the NBA. Again, whatever that means, a league mandated program. I don't even know what that's going to look like as far as what he'll need to do for the NBA to show the NBA that he's ready to return. Ja would come out. Ja also did himself no favors coming out with a post of a toy gun, saying that it was a toy gun, which again to me made zero sense. The suspension was going to happen regardless, and that's completely beside the point whether it was a toy gun or not. On the surface, the suspension is too harsh, considering that there was no crime committed by Ja. No one's life was in danger per se. If I look at it on the surface, it's a completely ridiculous suspension in terms of the amount of games. But that's not what we're dealing with. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about the NBA that is as image conscious of a league in regards to what players say about in terms of how players represent the league as far as bottom dollar. If you notice during anything that can take money away, that will take money away from the NBA, so they're gonna go crazy on. They're not gonna play with. They're not playing with their image. They don't want they don't want this image of a gun culture in the NBA. They want zero part of it. You're not going to make a case that some other suspensions should have been 25 games in regards to domestic violence over the past 10 years, and where some guys only got 8 to 10 games. Miles Bridges, they claimed it was 30 games, but it was actually 10 games. It was actually a 10-game suspension. It wasn't 30 games because 20 of those games, he just wasn't. No team was going to pick him up, or he wasn't eligible to play. It wasn't a 30-game suspension. In essence, it was a 10-game suspension. And what he did to me was way worse than Ja Morant, to be honest with you. But this is about image. This is about the bottom dollar. This also is about Adam Silver wanting to show that he is not a soft commissioner. He had developed a reputation, and rightfully so, as being the players' commissioner and being soft when it came to punishment, especially as in comparison to his predecessor, David Stern, who I can only imagine Ja might have been done for the season with David Stern. See, I mean, seriously, I'm not exaggerating. This is how David Stern would have approached this situation, because David Stern didn't play with the money either, as far as image and things like that. When it came to the bottom, anything that he thought would have affected the bottom dollar, he would have took a hammer to without question. That's how David Stern moved before during his 10 years as commissioner. I would say to Ja, I don't know how he's going to spend this time. A couple things that you don't like. You don't like the posting of the toy gun. I don't like that. That goes besides the point. You don't like statements like he just can't believe that the media is out to get him. And frankly, I didn't like his overall statement because it seemed like it was a carbon copy of a previous apology. And anytime a guy starts apologizing to their sponsors, I have to actually question how legit the apology is, or how contrite the apology is, because it's not about your sponsors. It's not. Like, you want to apologize to your family, your friends, your close people that have helped you get to the place where you're at, and then in the NBA, absolutely fine. But when you start talking about sponsors, that's the PR stuff. That's when I can't take it serious. And by the way, like what John says at this point can't be taken serious, because we've seen him apologize and do the same shit once again over and over. So his words don't mean anything. It's about change behavior at this point. And to me, what John needs to do is just go away. And I don't mean that in a condescending way. I don't mean that in a mean way. I just let us not see you on Instagram. Let us not see you making any public appearances. Let us not see you. Let us not hear from you in terms of making statements. Go away and do the work on yourself. Whatever that looks like. I don't know if therapy. I don't know what that looks like. Talking to somebody who you trust, who's going to be real with you. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what his religion is. If he were the confession, if he were Catholic confession. I'm serious. I'm serious when I say this. Whatever it is, just go away and let us not hear from you. The Chris Rock that we grew up watching would Bring the Pain, Bigger and Blacker, Never Scared, even Kill the Messenger, which was not very good, by the way. Kill the Messenger. Those three, Never Scared, Bigger, Blacker, Bring the Pain, were certified classics and three of the great all-time stand-ups in history, period. They are all-time. That version of Chris Rock is done. Completely done. Now, I thought that with him working so much in the past 2 years with Chappelle, he's done a lot of touring the last couple of years. 2022, he's off to he's touring now. Thought that, with that sort of repetition and working all the time and back practicing on his craft, that there was a possibility that he could somewhat return to what he once was as a top comedian in the game. After watching the special, it's like you just see that he is just so far removed from what he once was, and that guy's never coming back. Because the bottom line is, number one, he had too many. He's got too much money. Like, he's too successful outside of comedy. As far as he's just not that guy anymore. He's not that grinder of a comedian. Like, you watch those old episodes, you watch those old specials. There was a thirst, a passion for comedy. Like, that guy, that Chris Rock in his 30s, that guy was hungry, and that guy did not care about what you thought about him. He would say anything, and not just for the sake of anything. There was a rhythm to it. There was an artistry to it, to what he was saying. He was as well read of a comic as far as current events, and being able to make that connection and making it funny as anyone. Even that, he's not even this special wasn't even smart to me. It wasn't. I think is the most important record right now in team sports. And let me explain why. No one I'm all due respect to baseball and hockey, no one cares about those sports right now. There was a time where the home run record meant something, and then steroids with the whole Barry Bonds, that record nobody cares about that record anymore. It's just non-existent. Hockey, Wayne Gretzky, now when Alexander Ovechkin has a chance to break Wayne Gretzky's goal record in the next 2 or 3 years, if that happens, no one will care. Because hockey is just in the culture. Hockey's not a part of the sports culture at a high level. It's just not. Just not. If this was the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, maybe, but in 2023, those two sports are almost borderline irrelevant. Football, what record is really that important? We've seen all of them broken in terms of passing wise and yards, and with Brady. The rushing record will never be broken considering the way the game is played. But again, it's just not important. It's not an important record. It's a great record, but it's just not important. As great as football is football is on another level as far as popularity. If someone did break the rushing record, it would not be getting this type of attention. It just would. So this, to me, is the most important record right now because of the popularity of basketball, and just LeBron James is one of the most famous athletes on the planet, one of the most famous people on the planet. And we've grown up watching this happen over the last 20 years. This has happened in the social media, that era, like Twitter, all that. No. This is here to stay. Like, yeah, you're going to have Mahomes and you're going to have your Josh Allens. Those guys are going to be there for the next decade. But some of these other guys, some of these no names that you never heard of or that you never even thought would be leading a team in the playoffs, it's going to be at least 2 to 3 of them a year. easily. So this is something I will mark it right here, right now on January 11, 2023. We will be talking about this for the next 4 to 5, 6 years. This is going to be a trend because right now, like I said, the quarterback position is hurting in the NFL. Hurting once you get past a certain number. And you can say, well, it's always been like that. Yes and no, but we didn't always have 17 games. Okay. And I don't remember this many poorly run franchises, to be honest with you. I think there are so many terrible franchises in the NFL right now, more than I can remember growing up or watching football, even as a young adult, which is going to cause them to make even worse drafting mistakes. And to be honest with you, it's nothing really coming out the college pipeline that's like that. I mean, even this year, I wasn't blown away by Bryce Young or CJ Stroud. Now, there's always going to be a surprise that overachieves and say, hey, I didn't see him coming. Cool. Those are going to happen. But I really was thinking about this just when I went over this list and just looking at the draft, some of the college prospects, and even just thinking about quarterbacks in general. Matter of fact, I'm going to give you a list of quarterbacks who played this year. And this is not even the entire list. Jarrett Stidham, Sam Howell, Desmond Ridder, Skylar Thompson, Sam Ellinger, Joshua Dobbs, Sam Darnold. Those are some of the quarterbacks that played this year. And that's the short version of the list. So this will not be an aberration as far as some of these guys that you never heard of or that you wouldn't even think would be starting for a playoff team.
I only have one statement that proves that sums up your points perfectly.
Go.
Brock Purdy is on the team that has a legitimate chance to win the Super Bowl. That's their third string quarterback.
That's all you need to know.
That's not a thing. That's not a thing.
Yeah.
That is just not a thing.
No. And I'm glad you bring up San Francisco. They were a candidate to win the regular season in terms of winning the regular season. They have fun. Kyle Shanahan coached his ass off this year. They did a phenomenal job like that. Oh my!
I have come completely to your side on this. I see San Francisco in the Super Bowl. I
can see it. I can see it. I can see it. I can see it.
I see it fairly clearly.
They play. I mean, they know who they are. They know who they are. Getting to this weekend,
and San Francisco has they get healthy. I mean, their thing is always health. That's their thing, and they're getting everybody back. And the boy Purdy can play. He can play. He can play football. He can play that position. Getting better week after week after week. I was waiting to see if when people got tape on him, if his game would degrade. Oh, he's gotten better.
I mean, listen, it helps a lot when you have coaches put you in position to succeed. That goes a long, long way. Before we get to Snowfall, there's so much content coming out now, more content than ever before. I mean, there's streaming service upon streaming service. Everybody has a podcast. Everybody has a show. Talk about the challenge of separating the great content from just the regular content for you as someone as a producer, as someone who has to making decisions on, hey, is this a good story to tell, or maybe we need to stay away from that. We'll talk about those challenges when the consumers are saying we want more content. We want more content. I think a lot of times what I've seen and what I noticed, because I'm a very picky watcher. I don't just watch anything for the most part. I got a couple guilty pleasure television shows, but for the most part, I'm very picky in terms of the type of content that I'm consuming because it just has to be quality. But people want content no matter what it is. So how is that challenging for you? Because I'm sure you have a high standard of what is acceptable, what's not acceptable, what stories want to be told, what stories should be told.
I think, yes, for sure. There is so much content, so many different platforms that you can watch content on. I think that it's an exciting opportunity for people to be able to have ownership and be able to make their own content. I think before we had like YouTube and, different social media and stuff, it was kind of like you needed it in to be able to kind of have a platform for your content to live on. And now you can build a fan base off of, recording or shooting stuff from your phone. And I think that that's really exciting, and it gives content creators a lot of opportunity, especially going back to, Black creators. I think that when they don't have an industry connect, they're able to kind of highlight their own work that they're doing. And even if it's not about how many people are watching it, they have something to show for it, so that when they are trying to, build those skills or just being able to do it and say that they did it. But yes, there is a lot of content.
To me, I wouldn't have thought for them to get one first round pick was okay. That's one thing. For them to get multiple first round picks unprotected, and again, that just shows you how desperate both of these teams were desperate. But the Clippers keep Terrence Mann, and the Terrence Mann would be a very important player for the Clippers, especially in the postseason. We've seen him have big postseason games a couple years ago against Utah. He's definitely not afraid of the moment. A very good player, very young player, extremely as a young player who is not afraid of the moment. I'm a Terrence Mann fan. They kept him, but you bring in a guy who it hasn't worked out anywhere he's been. It ended in Houston miserably. It ended in Brooklyn miserably, and it ended in Philadelphia miserably. James Harden has not advanced past the second round of playoffs since 2018. That's a long time ago. Remember that 7-game classic series against Golden State when Durant, when they went Golden State went back to back, and Houston should have won. They have not. He's not been past the second round in almost 6 years now. And again, this is a guy who he's shaping up to be one of the most toxic stars, future Hall of Fame players in recent memory in terms of how he's ended his career. I was thinking about this. Allen Iverson, it didn't end well for Allen Iverson, who was a top 75 player, great Philadelphia 76er, of course, iconic player as far as the culture. We know when he met to the NBA, and it didn't end well for him because he wasn't willing to accept the role of being a role player. And we saw how it went in Detroit and Memphis and what have you. But he wasn't toxic though. It wasn't like he was forcing himself off teams and doing shit like he wasn't ruining teams' championship hopes. Like James Harden has compromised back-to-back franchises' championship hopes to where if he played better, Philadelphia last year should have been in the NBA Finals last year. Boston fell apart. They came apart against Miami. Miami, we know, overachieved. Milwaukee, of course, fell apart against Miami. It was right there, absolutely right there for Philadelphia to get to the finals. Now, would they have beaten Denver? Probably not. Jokic was on a mission. Denver, Murray, and Jokic were just unstoppable. They were 16-4 in the playoffs. The right team won the championship last year. But at least Philadelphia probably should have made the finals. If James Harden is just 5% better, not even vintage James Harden, going back to his Houston days when he led them to the Western Conference Finals, and when he was a perennial top 5 MVP candidate, top 3 MVP candidate for like 4 or 5 years. Now, forget about that James Harden, but even a James Harden that would have been 5% better, that team should have got to the finals.